Okay, I think we should start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to everyone for joining our today's webinar. Before we start officially, I would like to start with Surah Al-Fatiha and then Bismillah. Ameen. Today the topic in the webinar will be diversity and inclusion as a growth strategy for organization. We have a very, very respectable Madam Zarina. Let me tell you a little about Madam Zarina. I have a lot to talk about her because she has a lot of distinctions, a lot of achievements. Before joining IIM, Madam Zarina was managing partner of DeanWorks Resources, a company that focuses on helping clients in the area of strategic communication, research, stakeholder management, and organizational culture. Alongside, by the way, I'm also admitting people to join in. She was earlier attached to the CEO's Office of the Halal Development Industry Corporation, HDC, to assist on the strategic implementation of Malaysia's Halal Master Plan. This role came about after she led and completed a project that focused on the development of halal industry in Malaysia, when she was Associate Director, Public Policy and Strategy of IA Consulting, a private firm that offers management and technology consulting services across the region. She also worked for strategy and part of the PricewaterhouseCoopers group on an economic project for Sabah. She is the co-founder and former Chief Operating Officer of International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS Malaysia. IAIS Malaysia is the brainchild of former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. The institute is essentially a think tank that studies contemporary issues affecting communities in Malaysia with a focus on policy research to further civilizational renewal. She played a key role in its establishment in 2007 by successfully putting together the entire operational structure of IAIS. Upon setting up, she was tasked to manage the operations of the institute and also become the managing editor of IAIS Journal of Civilizations Studies and the head of policy unit. She later focused on her passion for policy research and consultancy by becoming a policy and project development consultant with the institute until 2011 before joining the private sector. Madam Zarina has spoken on gender issues, interfaith relations, and the education system in Malaysia and internationally. She helped organizations organize and lead IAIS studies on the controversial conversion issue in Malaysia, the DeBA Project of Islam and Policy Unit, resulting in IAIS' first policy paper submitted to Malaysian government. The paper has been recently published. She has also written several pieces and articles in the press and academic journals. She also has a BA First Class Honors, which she received in 1994 in Islamic Studies and Political Science at International Islamic University, Malaysia, and an MA in 1996 in Economics and International Relations from the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. She further completed an MBA 2002 at the University of Birmingham. Wow, we have a very, very we are lucky and we are honored to have Madam Zarina with us today. Looking at her achievements, I'm sure that this webinar will be fruitful for all of us. So without further ado, we have more to talk about her, but the more I talk, the less she will have time, and I don't want that. Without further ado, let me pass the stage to Madam Zarina. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Tahir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and good morning. Good morning and warmest greetings to all who are currently watching or listening online. The topic of our sharing session today is diversity and inclusion as a growth strategy for organizations. I actually should be the one thanking you, Dr. Tahir. I also am grateful to be given this chance to share my thoughts, and this would not have been possible without support from the Dean of Economics, Professor Hassanuddin, and the head of the Department of Business Administration, Professor Hazila, and especially our dear moderator, who had some headache with me dealing with the poster and finalizing it, etc., etc. Anyway, Alhamdulillah, it's a Friday morning. We hope it is a blessed day and a blessed morning, and we are gathered here today to share and to talk and to interact. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. Basically, I was going to start off by referring to the concept of diversity as it's described in the glorious Quran. In fact, it's such an important concept. It is such an important concept, and I will read two ayats from the Holy Quran. One is from Surah Ar-Rum, verse 32. And of his signs are the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the diversity of your tongues and colors. Surely there are signs in this for the learned. And in Surah Al-Hujurat, verse 13, O mankind. And this is one of my most favorite verse. Actually, it really clicks. Even as a young child, I loved this verse. O mankind, we have indeed created you from one man and one woman, and have made you into various nations and tribes, so that you may know one another. See, so you may know one another. Indeed, the more honorable among you in the sight of Allah is one who is more pious among you. Indeed, Allah is all-knowing, all-aware. And for the benefit of my non-Muslim friends, and my heart goes out to every one of them. Some of them are listening in and about to join me. I think there are common grounds here, where we are advised and encouraged to appreciate each other as we are, as we are, and not demand assimilation. And what values, what should count is the more honorable among us. What touches our hearts of our friends and our neighbors? It's values, common ground, what you say in the morning, how you treat one another, and that should matter for all of us, regardless of race and religion and where we are from. I would like to say that cultural diversity is actually one of the basic characteristics of human society, and it is indeed an asset indispensable to the progress of humanity. And it is, as a Muslim, for me, it's a basic tenet of my religion. And Islam, as far as I understand it, advocates the utilization of cultural dialogue and commonalities for maintaining peaceful coexistence. And diversity is actually one of the laws of nature. It's not something human beings can claim as man-made. The Quran states it clearly, and it says that it will benefit us, actually. Moving on, I wanted to come up with, to start off with this, that currently, for me and for all of us, the COVID-19 pandemic is our greatest teacher of the century. It's the COVID-19 is the grand equalizer. It has exposed concentration of wealth, poor health systems, which were supposed to exist in the first world, the rampage of Mother Nature. It's actually compelling us to relook at the global economy, relook at even human relationships. We currently see now global supply chains vulnerabilities, the gap between the haves and the have-nots, growing distrust of capitalism. These are, again, common issues that everyone is looking at and everyone is commenting on, whether it's on a Facebook social platform, opinion pieces, what have you. I personally have to unlearn a barrage of isms I have internalized and have been advised that the economic injustices can be corrected if we start focusing more on balance and sustainability by fixing our metrics and the way we capture data. I still remember days when I was working as a young graduate in a think tank, and I remember every single day my job was to track GDP, GNP, currency fluctuations, and inflation. I was looking at our price index. How much is a loaf of bread in Malaysia today? How much was it a month ago? How much is it in the ASEAN countries? How are we performing? How was our foreign direct investments doing? That was all we did night and day. And not all of it is bad, I must say. It's how we use the data, how we harness the data. Moving on, how else can we try and correct these economic injustices? Perhaps we can use fiscal policies differently to effectively address the social agenda. Basically, try and use all tools to do their jobs and ensure that the implementation is done right. Sometimes we don't need to reinvent the wheel, in my opinion, and we don't need to just throw everything out and bring in the new. We just need to make certain aspects of it right, perhaps. It sounds easy, but implementation is always difficult. Perhaps capitalism can turn over a new leaf and realize it needs to learn to give back to society by being more transparent, respecting privacy, and embracing diversity and inclusiveness, if nothing else. D&I. D&I is the buzzword right now. It's a hot topic. What is diversity? It is to understand and accept that each individual is unique and recognize our individual differences. Our differences in race, ethnicity, gender, thinking, socioeconomic status, age, physical abilities, religious beliefs, political beliefs, or other ideologies, even sexual orientation. And some of us may be uncomfortable with the last one, and we can discuss it later if anyone wants to bring this up. I like to look at this definition, and for me, I'd just like you to just focus on perhaps just 4 words, which I have highlighted. Even 3, actually. Understand, accept, recognize differences. Understand, accept, recognize differences. Sometimes you can't understand the differences. Well, just then accept it. Just accept it. I have so many stories to share. I have friends, contacts, colleagues, I'm sure all of you have been through it, where I've been asked a gazillion times, why do you have to cover your hair? Why is it so important? And I've explained it. And we're all human. And to the same groups of people that tend to ask me the same question repeatedly, I tend to think that they have an issue accepting it. So you can ask, and it's not a problem. But there'll be a point where if you cannot understand it, you'll have to be gracious and accept it. As I have to accept why my neighbor doesn't eat beef, for instance. It's not a big deal. For me, diversity can help organizations. And it's something that I've witnessed in my very, very little experience. I've worked for about 25 years, almost, 25 years. And I have seen how diversity and difference in thinking and approach can be a game changer. Ask anyone in marketing. A diverse work team brings diverse viewpoints and perspectives to a company. It will increase their profitability, innovation, decision-making abilities. Diversity, in fact, opens up new segments and different markets. That's why you've got like Diversity Inc. and Johnson & Johnson just, I think, bagged the first prize. There are big, huge corporations that are doing their utmost in this area because they have reaped the benefit, they have tasted the fruit, they believe it, and they do walk the talk. Not everyone, but a handful of them. If you look at what Juliet Sweets said, she's the CEO of Accenture. Inclusion and diversity is critical for what we do. It enables us to be innovative and solve problems for our people, our clients, and our communities every day. Being an inclusive and diverse company matters for who we want to be and what we want to do as a company. It's something that should naturally resonate with leaders, in my opinion. If you've noticed that your team is homogeneous, your board is homogeneous, your decision makers are happily in their comfort zone, you should be worried. Companies that reported above average diversity on their management teams also reported innovation revenue that was 19% higher than that of companies with below average leadership diversity. These are statistics coming up from BCG, Boston Consulting Group. These organizations also reported better overall financial performance, EBIT margins that were 9% higher than those of companies with below average diversity on their management teams. Companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on their executive teams were 21% more likely to have above average profitability than companies in the fourth quartile. For ethnic cultural diversity, top quartile companies were 33% more likely to outperform on profitability. McKinsey and Company. Inclusive decision-making help companies. How so? They help make better business decisions 87% of the time. That's a very high number. 87, not even 50%. It drives decision-making 2 times faster with half the meetings. It improves decision team results by 60%. This came out from Clover Park. Job acceptance rate. 67% of active and passive job seekers said that a diverse workforce is an important factor when evaluating companies and job offers. It's interesting because, again, you know, when you speak about this topic, this topic deals with human emotion and psychology. It's about human beings, it's about yourself, it's about your experiences, what you actually feel and think when you are in a multiracial society, a multiracial setting. It could be in a social event, it could be at work, it could be the neighborhood, your school days, what have you. You really need to look into your heart and mind, dig into your experiences, your own experiences, and ask yourself honest to goodness questions. Like, for me personally, I get more excited working in a multinational company or multinational environment. You know, it can be a corporate or non-corporate, and I've tried both. I get more excited. I'm more motivated when I'm in a multi-racial environment than when I'm in an environment where it's completely homogeneous. So even if it's a completely Muslim environment, but if there are Muslims from all over the world, it is exciting than to work in an environment where everyone is very much alike. And that's my personal perspective. And I trace it to perhaps my family environment and my school and my neighborhood. I was always flanked by other ethnic groups. The Sindhis, the Punjabis, and of course Malays and the Chinese, and it was beautiful. I grew up in that environment, and I really enjoyed it because I enjoyed celebrating all the festive seasons. I enjoyed trying all the different types of dishes, and I enjoyed having all these aunties and uncles giving me money or gifts every time they had a celebration. So I think positive memories as a child has stuck to me throughout my years, that aspect of my childhood, and perhaps that's made me more open to this than others. I'm not sure, but Anyway, moving on. The diverse workplace may not mean that it is inclusive. This is something that I like to highlight because diversity is spoken about. Its diversity has a positive connotation, and it sounds good and healthy. There's a feeling of openness, confidence, but there's a big but in there that when there is diversity, it does not necessarily mean that there's going to be inclusiveness. Inclusion takes time. It takes time. And leaders who truly embrace diversity need to, a lot of times, they need to walk the talk. They would have come from years of experiencing work or interaction with the others. They need to be comfortable with the other. They need to embrace the other. And it's not just lip service. It's not skin deep. It's not just, it has to emanate and resonate from a deeper part of the psyche of that individual, where you would have to be aware of your own biasness. You need to be brave. You need to be able to create safe space. And you need to also ensure that there are no other subgroups being formed to undermine your D&I agenda. I will come back to this later. I just wanted to share this with you. Look at this. The student selling some cookies, and some cookies are being sold for $2 to the white Caucasians. And to the Asians, it's $1.50, and to the Hispanics, Latino, it's $1. We can extrapolate from this. We can draw parallels. In our society, we've got different ethnic groups also. So this big sale was intended to protest legislation that will let universities in California consider a student's background in university admissions. So imagine there were actually universities that looks at race as the defining factor, which is something to think about. I like to highlight this. 6 signature traits that distinguishes inclusive leaders from their counterparts. I hope that those who are very serious about introducing D&I in your environment, and if you need to look around you, look at the different leaders that exist in your workplace, and you may want to think hard and deep, who really is an inclusive leader, whether your leader is, whether you are committed to always encourage views from different members of your team, whether you are committed and you are brave enough to do it in an open manner. In other words, if an environment does not typically encourage or invite the views of a certain group, would you be able to invite them or encourage them to speak up or to give their views in whatever methods or means, and make that public? Or would you perhaps do it quietly first and then slowly educate and change the environment? Because every environment is different, and sometimes you cannot do it in such a way that scares off everybody, especially when that's not been done before. Are you also cognizant of your own biasness? Are you aware that you are uncomfortable and you're sitting in your room alone in your chair and there's no one watching you except you? And of course, God is always there. Would you admit to yourself that you are uncomfortable with certain types of people? Do you dare ask yourself these questions and then ask yourself why? would you address these biases as best as you can? I think cultural intelligence is something that leaders who talk about D&I need to have. And I've explained this early on in my slides, and a collaborative mindset. Because typically what happens is that you've got there are companies that know that, with the current pandemic, where the pandemic, in my mind, has opened up a Pandora's box, or some people, a can of worms have been opened. Suddenly our minorities are climbing into the bandwagon with their issues. People who have been singled out, people who have been marginalized, women, the senior citizens, they're all climbing onto this bandwagon of Black Lives Matter. We've got COVID, and that's wreaked some havoc, and then you've got some other social issues that have come up, and the timing is perfect. And this is the time to voice grievances. Well, yes, and if their grievances are real and it has been going on for decades or centuries, and if they find an opportunity to speak up, why not? Why not? But what creates concern is when you have leaders who take this opportunity, they're opportunists, who feel that they need to be popular, and they need to be seen to be in line with SDG goals, for example, or sustainability goals. They need to be seen to be inclusive, but they don't actually they're not sincere about it. If I could just say it directly, they're not sincere about it. So then they create other positions, sometimes called director of D&I, director of diversity and inclusion, and this has happened in some companies, or chief operator of inclusion, or cultural CEO of cultural activities, where they want to be seen to be including the others, where they want to be seen to be addressing minority issues. But when you dig deeper, you realize that the teams that make the core decisions are pretty homogeneous. Teams that decide on issues that make or break on budgets and whose proposal gets approved and not approved are homogeneous. And when you think, well, when I look at the list of names, I see different types of names. There are members of the team, there are directors from different parts of the world. But when you dig deeper and you think, they seem to be representing different ethnicities and different gender, different sex, different age even. So their views should be diverse. But when you look into their training, if you look into their thinking, you would notice that they're homogeneous in their thinking. So, their names could be Muhammad Ali, or the next name could be Edward Gay, and the third name could be Mei-Ling Long. But the point is that they're actually pretty much in the same type. They're all peers in the same group. They've possibly come out from pretty much the same Ivy League type of universities. They are all either, possibly all American trained, and they are so similar in their thinking and their approach, even though, they could represent different ethnic groups. And that is when you would conclude that there is no diversity in thinking. I mean, obviously, this is based on evidence and research. So at the end of the day, diversity and inclusion is a strategy that can be only carried out successfully when the leaders have real intention, real strategic intent. They have true appreciation of its importance, and they also have the skills to do it. innate skills. They've got the charisma. They've got the influence. They know how to cascade these messages and these traits successfully throughout the organization. And they would have to work with human resource. They need to work with the finance team. They need to work with the legal team. It's not as simple as that. It's like, okay, you could start with something as simple as let's celebrate everyone's festive season. Let's find out what all other racial groups in our company want to speak, would like to have for our business lunch. It would start from something as simple as that. Or how come there's no women in the strategic team? Or can we have perhaps can we have some senior citizens represented in our board of advisors, for example? I would like to share an anecdote, if I may. I'm just going to read it off from a actual research that I read. Okay, we have interviewed, I'm going straight to this dinner where this researcher, I think it was from Deloitte, if I'm not mistaken. I recently had dinner with a woman who was an executive at Apple Inc. in the 1980s. She shared with me that at that time, Apple was filled with people of all ages and varying backgrounds, engineers, artists, designers, and even musicians. Can you believe it, musicians? Many of them did not have college degrees, but they were all passionate professionals committed to Apple's success. These were the days when Apple was out innovating IBM, Microsoft, and almost every other computer manufacturer. She lamented that today, driven by a new breed of hiring practices, companies focus almost entirely on college degree, GPA, and pedigree. And she believes this has created many of the diversity challenges we have in Silicon Valley. These examples help us, my respected listeners, realize that we must think about diversity and inclusion in a holistic way. Holistic way, and that's the key word. Rather than just trying to hire more women engineers from top schools, how about expanding your whole recruiting philosophy to include engineers, artists, mathematicians, and other creative professionals from a broad set of experiences? Rather than looking for bright millennials, how about hiring some veterans or older professionals who are highly skilled? Remember, diversity goes far beyond education and gender. Now, Malaysia. This report has come out of Hays. Hays, as you know, it's a company, it's a headhunting company, looking to the future and for ways that companies can better support diversity of opinion. 47% of Malaysian respondents think that collaborative roundtable employee forums and discussions are an important strategy. It proves that Malaysians are in favor of more proactive communication on D&I issues. Do you see how far down the value chain we are, actually? This Hays report, to be honest, gives Malaysia hope, but it also says that we have a long way to go before we can actually embrace D&I properly. That we are at this, where we are right now, we are only at the stage where we are open to communicate about D&I. Forget about walking the talk. We're still at that stage, which is quite sad because we were born multiracial. This country was born multiracial. It should be in our DNA, but it's still not there. And I'm sure most of you know the answer to that. Most of you can figure out why that's the case. I'm not going to say it, but I always, in my heart, this is again what Islam teaches us. For instance, I think we always look at need-based policies. I mean, when you're talking, when you look at any social agenda, when you're bridging any gaps, haves and have-nots, Islam teaches us that we look at needs. It should be need-based. So that gives us a lot to think about. D&I needs to be something that every single employee at the company has a stake in. Who said this? Go Yang Lee, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer from Uber. I think I should stop here. It's, I think, 11:40, Dr. Tahir. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. I hope I've not said anything to offend anyone. And I really look forward to receiving questions from my respected listeners. And thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Madam Zarina. It was a spectacular talk, and the topic is equally very, very interesting, and you highlighted very nicely. Now to the audience, you can start asking as many questions as you want, keeping in mind the 20 minutes time frame. So you can take questions, you can post your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and then I'm going to let you go and ask your question. So there's a function of raise your hand, right? On the bottom, there's a function, raise your hand. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Madam Zarina, now I think you can turn off your screen sharing so that we can have a better view of all the participants, and that way we'll be able to see the raising of hands and everything. So on the lower bottom, you have the same panel. You click on it and stop screen sharing. The place from where you started, you stop it from the same place.
Okay, yeah, it's right here. Yeah. All right, I'm trying to. Okay. Is that good?
Great. Now we have a better look of the participants. So, Doctor, let's go first to the chat and see who is asking a question. We have Prof. Sahami. Dr. Sahami is asking a question. Assalamu alaikum. How being diverse but not inclusive? In IM, we have many races but cannot work together. Why?
Okay.
You can also see the chat, by the way. The question is already written there in the chat. In Malaysia, we have many races for many years, yet still having problems. What is the reason? What is your take on it, or what is your comments about it?
I'll address the first one first. Thank you very much, Professor Suhaimi, for this question. Walaikum salam. How being diverse but not inclusive? Because as I was saying, it's not a given. It's not a given. It's not a given. It's not automatic. If you're very you work in an environment where there are multiple ethnicities, but they're not inclusive because they only handpick or a few whose voices they want to hear, who are included, who are invited to the table to table their thoughts, and the rest, you are the backbenchers, for example. You sit at the back, or you'll be invited, but you need to be the silent observers. So when that happens to you, then you know that the environment is not inclusive. I mean, you can't invite thousands of people to a roundtable discussion, I understand, but what you can do is create platforms, as I highlighted in my talk, platforms. And if they still don't give their views, then they have no right to complain that you have not invited them to give their views. It could be as simple as an email address. It could be a town hall. It could be a town hall. It could be several town halls, and you've got a team of note takers. So you demonstrate your sincerity. You take note, give everyone a voice, let them say, and then make it very clear. If I invite you to my town hall and you don't come, don't say that I never included you. You don't have a right to say that. Or I've given you an email address, I'm waiting for a response, there's no feedback. I think it's like Prof. Suhaimi, it's about communication. You need to be, I mean, if I am someone who is sitting at the periphery of organization and I don't check my emails every day and I can complain, hey, it's my problem. But if I do check my email, then I'm wondering, how come this great Council ABC, hasn't asked my view? Hasn't asked my view. I like to, I'll tell you a little story. I mean, this is something that was told to me. There was an organization, and in the organization, there was a sweeper. And the sweeper used to use a particular type of broom to do his work for decades. And suddenly, somebody rewrote the SOP of that organization and dictated from the top that all brooms have to be changed from this broom to a different type of broom. And this poor sweeper has been sweeping for a long time, almost 3 decades. and he was suffering because he wasn't comfortable with the new type of room. So one day, he was very lucky. He worked in an organization which gave him access to the topmost, highest rank official. He managed to see the individual and say to him that I'm unhappy because they have changed my room. And so the extremely high rank officer, let's just call him the CEO, said, what happened? He said, they've changed this room and I don't like this room. And the CEO contacted the roundtable, the decision makers, and said that this poor man is complaining to me. And how did this happen? And this decision maker said, we've changed the SOP. Simple as that. He just needs to follow the SOP. The CEO asked, have any one of you swept the floors of this organization before? The decision maker said, no, we're not sweepers, right? We are sitting in the decision maker seats. We're highly qualified professionals. And the CEO says, did you consult the sweeper before you changed the SOP? They said, no, we didn't. Well, then the CEO said, you don't know enough to write this SOP. Rewrite it and do it this week. This is a true story. They rewrote the SOP. They got the sweepers to come and give their opinions, and things was put right. This is a true anecdote. So again, coming back to your question, Professor Suhaimi, it's actually not rocket science. It's about being serious about your intent. Are you serious? If you are serious, encourage and invite every single person in that organization to give their view. They cannot all cram into one hall or one conference room. And then when they do give your view, please act on the view. And you can get a team of people to reply to the emails, call them in, and say that we're taking these recommendations. These are solid. It came from Fulan bin Fulan. Advertise their names. And these, thank you very much, but we have filtered and we're not going to be using this, but we're using that. So for me, it's about walking the talk, and it's not difficult. In Malaysia, we have many races for many years. We're still having problems. Yes, that is a broad statement to make, and that is very true. I would think partly it's perhaps due to our race-based politics and policies. I was trained in political science, and that's what I've always been taught. But I also feel that there are success stories. There are many success stories where teams are multiracial, board members has got different genders, the older generation, younger generation. I know of teams where they have paired a millennial who's 20-year-old coming out of Ivy League with a 62-year-old person from another environment, and the relationship is beautiful, symbiotic. The different genders, the different age groups, the millennials and the older person work perfectly. So I can quote 25 case studies of success stories. So yeah. Any other question? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Sulaiman, brother Sulaiman. He is raising hand. So Sulaiman, you're there. Brother Sulaiman rose his hand, but I think he is no more there. Yes, we have Amalina. Yes, Amalina.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you very much, Madam Zarina. It was a very good sharing. So I have a question here. Since I'm working in a multinational company, and we have the rise of LGBT to claim themselves as a part of diversity, to become the part of organization as a community. So how do we, as a Muslims, to actually embrace this kind of challenges to put into diversity and inclusion in the workplace? And maybe if we are the business owner as a Muslim, so how do we actually have this in control, whether we should set aside altogether this kind of group, or we can have them in, but with some restriction or limitation? What do you think on this?
Okay, I hear your question. I'm not sure whether I understand everything that you're saying, because when you say how do we, they belong to the LGBT group, and they claim that they are part of that diverse group. and how do we treat them? Do we let them in if you're a Muslim company, and how we should let them? Okay, they are human beings, right? They're human. So we need to, if I am in a company, for example, I'm working in a multinational company which is owned by, the headquarters is in New York. All right, I am a Muslim. I am visibly a Muslim. When I say visibly, I mean I have a hijab on. You have some Muslim men who don't look visibly Muslim because you can't tell whether they're Muslim. But for Muslim women who wear the hijab, they are visibly Muslim. So say I'm put in a team with an individual, a man or a woman, and I look at him as a man or a woman, and I don't ask him what his sexual orientation is. I mean, like, hi, how are you? I'm Zarina. You're David. By the way, are you gay? I won't be asking anybody such a question. So if I find out and I'm just focused on my work, and I'm focused on my professional relationship, and I would be focused on treating my colleagues with respect. If his sexual orientation does not come in between my work with him and it does not affect his professional performance, I don't see why it's a concern. That's one. Two, if I were a business owner and we get applications for a job, and it depends what the job is. It all depends. That's why there are a lot of conditions, Amalina, that we need to look into. For example, the job is, I'm not sure, his job is to do my window design. He's a window designer. I have a boutique. I need someone to do a beautiful window design for me to exhibit my shoes and my handbags to sell. And I've got 10 CVs. And I find his CV extremely impressive. He's so talented. And I interview him, and he's really good at his job. I don't see the problem. I'm sorry, because as Muslims, my interview questions should be based on the job, on whether you are competent, whether you've got the abilities and skills, attitude to help deliver the job, for you to earn the salary that the company is going to pay you. So if you do the job well, it doesn't bother anyone. Again, I don't see how that plays a role in hiring such a person in that particular context. Hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Do you have any other question? I have a lot of questions. But do you have any other questions from the audience? Yes, Prof. Hazila.
I forgot to mention moderators are not allowed to ask questions.
Sorry.
Moderators are not allowed to ask questions.
I will send it to someone.
I will give it to the students then. I will talk to you in private.
No, you're not. Please, Professor Hazila, I'm so happy to see you.
Okay. I just want to ask, because this is a very interesting topic, so I cannot stop myself from answering questions, from asking questions. I think the Black Lives Matters, all that brings up the question of inclusivity to the forefront. Yeah?
Yes.
But that is in America. But in Malaysia, I think the context is different. I'm particularly concerned about the education system because I look at my children when they go to school, primary school, they have mixed, yeah? And then they go to secondary school, it's mixed, yeah. But when it comes to university, they don't mix. The non-Malays will go to the private universities, and the Malays will go to the public universities. So this disjointed, this is where I don't know how to reconcile this. I don't think we can solve this, but this factors into how that shapes the Malaysian psyche of diversity and inclusivity. Yeah, I would like to have your opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, you raised such an important point. Thank you. And I actually inadvertently did not touch on it very much other than my Hayes report. You are really spot on, Professor, for bring that we are polarized. in the education system, and the experiences and childhood is such critical experiences, actually. The friends that you make and you're comfortable with when you are not blinded by biasness as a child. Sometimes you are blinded by your parents, you don't realize it. But in the Sekolah Kebangsaan, sometimes they get to mix with everybody, and then later in life, if you go to the national universities, then there is polarization. But when you go to the private universities, there'll be a lot of other races, and you're forced to mix. That's my current observation. So if if it's like you're going to University Malaya, you'll see this. If you're going to Help University atau Sunway University, you'll see something else. I can let me speak as a mother. I have two kids. When they were young, they went to a Kebangsaan school, and I did notice that because I grew up. My home environment always encouraged interracial relationships. I don't know why. That was how I was raised, and maybe the muhibah of yesteryears. It's like if we have a kanduri at home or something, my mother will always pack food and say, give it to the neighbors. And my neighbors it could be Mrs. Mahadevan, Auntie Chan, different personalities. And my mother would say, give all, give all, give all. So from a very young age, we were taught that when we have something, our neighbors smell the food, we have to give it to them. I've witnessed family members caring for people from different racial groups. It was very normal, I think, for me. So when my child was mixing with certain particular group, I used to ask my daughter, I said, who are your friends? And she gave me the names. Then I used to tell her, good. I said, but they're all Muslim names and Malay names. I told her, you need to mix with others. You have to have other types of friends in your group, and you're small. So I said, it's good for you to mix with everybody, because Allah loves them all. Allah loves us all, and you need to be open. So I did that to my children from young, and then I think later at university, I'm not sure, but to what extent you want to carry out this agenda, but you could invite friends from other, we used to have gatherings of different groups at home, outside, and so the children saw it. The children saw it growing up. It's a really cute story. I mean, my mother-in-law's from Penang, and she's adorable. She speaks a bit of Hokkien, a bit of Tamil, a bit of Thai, a bit of Arabic. So we really have this diverse environment, and we celebrate languages. So if you know how to speak this language, then when you approach the shopkeeper, then you say, okay, you can speak directly, speak in that language, and tell them, I want less salt, nice salt, make it nice. And then the children learn from a young age that when you can speak a bit of that language, even if it's like in Philippine, like kamustaka or magante, that's like in Tagalog, or you say it in bahut khubsurat in another language, or ni hao ma in Mandarin, whatever. Little things like that, they go a long way. That's what I was raised with, and that's what we practice at home. So I feel that, Professor, that as parents with children, we can embed it in them from a young age in a very fun, sweet manner, and I think the effects go on for decades, I can say. And your observations is spot on, but we can't change the realities of the universities overnight. But I feel that the university student leaders should actually be encouraged by the management of universities to organize interracial Harmony Day, interracial dialogue, a joint project, just a project. How about cleaning the university? Environment Day, and you get different groups together based on different ethnicity to do a project, something like that. But that's at the university level, right? But as parents, we could actually effect change at home. Yeah, that has been my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Brother Aslam, and Brother Aslam says that it is in the chat. In my opinion, I don't see multiracial communities in Malaysia are not ready to work together. It's the lack of political will, lack of initiating, and lack of identifying potential that's slowing down the working together. What do you think? What are your comments?
I agree with your comment, Professor Aslam. I, uh, I, I will. Yes. Well, again, as I said, I have witnessed a surau committee in a neighborhood that worked with another Buddhist community to do a cleaning up day of a neighborhood. This happened a few years ago before COVID, obviously. I witnessed it myself. So I also knew that that particular surau, and you know, the guy, the surau head was wonderful. He invited all the other groups, other ethnic groups, and the Buddhist community encouraged to come for a visit. So they came to the surau to visit, and they had a meal. They were brought into the mosque. They're given a tour. They even conduct like a sail together. So you are right to say that this is not what you see is very representative and very true. But I would like to be hopeful and positive that there are pockets of wonderful things which sadly our media, our press does not pick up. They don't pick it up and they don't make it big, you know? They don't make it big. Sadly, they will pick up just sometimes small incidents that will create bigger fissures, weaken the social fabric, and they sensationalize it. That is tragic. So again, Professor Aslam, I would encourage civil society. Civil society is powerful. You are a stakeholder, a big stakeholder, and you can effect change. You can effect change. So really, NGOs, non-profit organizations, the single moms group, you know, student organizations. I also know a lot of good student organizations in Taylor's University that organize talks on interracial harmony, loving the other. Again, it's not highlighted so much in the media, but perhaps maybe one day we should all get together and organize a press conference and come up big and loud, because our voice needs to be heard. The voices of these people who want to work together, who have worked together, but they are not showcasing their stories out in the open. So the political will, yes, as you know, we've got race-based politics in this country. I'm not sure whether I will live long enough to see it ever change, because you know, politics is a different ball game altogether, and something that it's not my area of expertise. Thank you.
Thank you. We have reached the time. It's 12 past now. But I think it's Prof. Aida have rightly mentioned that in IIM we have Ummatik Week, which is a nice display of diversity. I'm not going to give a chance to anyone else. Rather, I'm going to ask one last quick questions, and I would request you a quick reply. And that would be, do you think that in organizations we need to have trainings to educate the employees on diversity? And then I think it should be a continuous training programs that the organizations should arrange, and that way the organization culture should be changed. So what are your comments on that?
Yes, I completely agree with you. I cannot agree with you more that yes, we should have programs. It has to be ongoing to start effecting change. If not, we cannot just wait for it to happen naturally or organically, even though you could, but you need to have the programs and the courses. There are courses in D&I being run by Stanford, Harvard, different human capital development sections, Dr. Tahir, in good organizations. So you are absolutely right. There needs to be such courses and to trigger this consciousness. And then perhaps after that, we can carry out more and more projects on the ground to actually encourage people, because you need to change behavior. You need to change the mindset. And if they're not learning it at home, because I sorry to use myself as an example, because I just use myself as a laboratory. If it's not happening at home, it has to happen outside the home. It has to happen in the organization. You're spot on. Yeah. Okay, I've answered your question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think we have reached the end of the allotted time for this. The discussion is a very beautiful discussion, and perhaps we can have more webinars on it, and maybe a Q&A kind of webinar rather than a presentation. So the audience would be invited just to discuss with you, hopefully, inshallah, in the coming future. And
Sure.
I can see that people are joining in even now. I think they are getting the news late, but I hope in the future I will arrange some more webinars or talks like that. I can see that people are interested in this topic and they want answers and they want discussion on this topic. But unfortunately, we don't have the liberty of time today, as promised with the rest that we will have it, say, from 11 to 12, and it is 12 past now. So let's conclude our webinar. But before that, thank you so much, Madam Zarina, again, and to all of you who have joined our today's webinar. I hope that we'll have more webinars like that, and I hope to see you people in the coming webinars as well. Let's conclude our meeting and our webinar with Surah Al-Asr.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I have already recorded the meeting. I will hopefully upload it on the YouTube and share a link with you. Prof. Azila is giving this nice smile. I think she wants to say something. Prof. Azila, your microphone is off. Oh.
Okay, just want to say thank you to Madam Zarina. I think this is a very, very timely, very good, very timely discussion regarding diversity and inclusivity, and also to Professor Tahijan for organizing the webinar, and for all those who come, Dr. Suhaimi, everybody from there. But I told you, Madam Zarina, we are very nice people here.
Yes.
And all those who are here attending the webinar.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much, Professor Hazila, and thank you so much, Prof. Tahir and Professor Suhaimi. I look forward to, hopefully one day we'll get to, sit and have a meal together, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.